everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing Married at First Sight, Season 17, Episode 4. Here at this channel, we do a little different review. We're doing a therapeutic review using the Model Internal Family Systems, where we get a little curious about what's happening internally into these couples' internal worlds that is motivating how they're showing up for each other and how they're showing up for themselves. So we can potentially learn a little about relationships and maybe even a little bit about ourselves. If you are returning, welcome back. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. First we have Becca and Austin, and they are just having a blast. The party is still happening. They're giggling, they're laughing, they're exploring each other, and at the same time taking their time to get to know each other. It is still pretty, the conversation is a little light. The banter between them is still very lighthearted. And at the same time, in the morning, after the wedding night, we see, right, that Becca chooses to let Austin know about her health concerns and the journey she's been on, what she has to hold, right, in her body in regards to an autoimmune disease on top of the surgery that she had to have that was pretty intense. And I really, really like how Austin met Becca. He met her with questions, with curiosity. He's like, okay, are you in pain? So she said, yeah, I'm like always in pain, but it's like my baseline, so I'm used to it, right? And then asked even more questions about if she was nervous sharing it, and that he also appreciated her sharing that with him. And she said that, at first she was really apprehensive because she hadn't met him, but after meeting him, she felt like she could share this with him because he's perfect. And then there was a little giggle. So there's a part of me that's saying, okay, I know that they joke, right? And at the same time, I'm seeing that Becca may be, right? We don't know for sure, but Becca may be making some assumptions about Austin because they're getting to know each other, because they're getting along so well that, ooh, this is going to be great. Ooh, this is going to be great. And not to say that it's not. And at the same time, we don't know. Everything is very lighthearted. They are a fun-loving couple, and so they're really enjoying each other's company, which is beautiful. And at the same time, life is still waiting, right? Waiting to happen, and how will they respond to that? Now, of course, after the wedding night, they do the usual brunch where they meet each other's friends and family, and Austin is meeting Becca's friends, and I really love the connection that was kind of happening even between them two. They asked about his job, and he's like, yeah, meh, I really don't like my job. It doesn't have anything to do with who I am. It's just work. And they said, well, the type of person that Becca is, she's probably going to really position you to do a job that you really enjoy. That's just who she is. She really likes to enjoy life, and she really likes to also help people around her do that. And so one of her friends also shared around her health issues and how it impacted her to see Becca go through this alone, and how sometimes she really downplays it, saying she's fine. And oftentimes what happens there, or what potentially is happening there, when people are saying that they're fine, there's a part of them that doesn't want you to worry, about them. And so they say, I'm okay. And at the same time, what that can do, though, is make them very alone in whatever they're going through in their journey. And so her friend sees that, and so grateful that Austin is there, and the person that she's seeing or believing that he is will be there with her as she's going through this. And so he's hearing that, Becca went through the surgery during Christmas time and how scary it was. And it seemed like Austin got a little teary-eyed there, which I'm actually happy to see. And it may sound a little crazy to say that, but it's showing that there's some tenderness there. There's some connection there. There's some empathy there, outside of the fun-loving goofy rightness that we seeing in Austin's personality, that there's a part of him that is tender, and he's like, man, I'm really sorry to hear that, and that must have been really hard for her, right? So there's some connection there, and that speaks to how, right, he may potentially show up, right, for Becca in this relationship. And then lastly, her friends offered themselves as a support, as he was asking, hey, can I ask you all, any information around, just to get to know her health condition a bit more. And they say, yeah, absolutely, and we're here to support you, which I felt was really a great ask. Friends and family normally are, asking the hard questions, and you better prove to us that you're the person for our person. And at the same time, to support could really help the couple join one another. Now, next we have Becca meeting Austin's family and friends. And Becca is sharing how, man, I can't believe it. I married someone who's just like me, right? He's very charismatic. He's an extrovert. And so they asked about, like, hey, what do you do? Like, how do you spend time in your fun time together, in your spare time? And she's like, well, I hang out, but not like the nightlife, but I go to my friend's house and we hang and we make muffins and then debate about if muffins are a cupcake. And then his friend said, oh my God, not another person that I have to make this debate with, right? So we see, right, that they have very similar sense of humors, and that's going to bode well for them in connecting with each other. Now, Austin's mom, Mama Bear, right? She said it, I'm Mama Bear, and she was definitely in that energy and protective mode, right? I'm trusting you with his heart. This is his heart, and life happens. You better be ready, right? And so, mom and dad are concerned because they don't know each other, and that's a huge concern for them, right? And I really love how Becca met. Like, she had this part of her that was like very empathetic and reassuring and validating. Like, she's like, I hear you. Yeah, you're right. Life is hard. Life is really hard, and being in a relationship is very scary. You give your life to someone, you give your heart to someone that's very vulnerable. And mom's reply was, okay, so you get it, right? So that validation that Becca was able to give mom helped to calm that mama bear inside of her, that part of her, and let her know that, oh, you hear me. You get that this is a big thing. You get it. And that's oftentimes all we're wanting someone to tell us. You get it. You understand. When we're communicating with each other, we just are wanting the validation. And it was beautiful that Becca was able to give his parents that validation. As the couples were meeting each other, it was very cute to see in Becca and Austin's confessional that they were the couple that was like commenting on everybody's appearance, or the connection that in chemistry they saw with each couple, how Lauren and Orion, for them, felt like they were married for years, how there was a huge height difference between Claire and Cameron. And so it was really, again, it's a testament to how they are developing this really friendship, and it's not like a friend zone friendship, right? There's still some like action and chemistry happening between them, as you see like Becca opening the door on him as he's in his birthday suit in the bathroom. Like there's some connection and chemistry there. They're kissing, they're holding hands, right? They're always close. They're always close when they're sitting with each other. So this is boding well. This is really boding well for them. And the fact that Austin was really able to meet Becca with that authenticity as she was sharing this really big piece of her life, that gives us a little sign that things potentially, I know that last week we said that Claire and Cameron were potentially most likely to succeed. I don't know. Maybe these two are our front runners, especially after this episode. But as I always say, we shall see. Next we have Emily and Brennan. And the couple, they're still It's so beautiful to see how Brennan is looking at Emily. Like he is doting on her. He's smitten. And he even said it like, like I'm like fully into you, right? And I feel like that is such a brave thing. Like this part of him that's willing to be open with his heart and where he is in this process. Even though, yes, this is a marriage, and of course, you're expecting that to happen. And at the same time, this is new. This is very new. And so sometimes protection can come in spaces where you're meeting new people because you're like, I don't know if you're feeling me. I don't know, and I need to keep my cards close to the vest. And so he's open. Like he's open to this. And sharing that with her. And you could tell that it's landing really well with Emily. Like she is all smiles when they are like in the limo going back to the hotel. And they decide to, even though Emily hints to it throughout the wedding night, that they decide to just sleep and not take that step as of yet in the wedding night, right? And so they're talking about their likes and their dislikes and their differences and their morning routine. And Emily says that she likes to blast music in the morning, and that might be something that she has to change because that's not how Brennan likes to get up in the morning. She talks about blasting the AC and opening the window, and they live in Denver, Colorado in the winter. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm learning more about my wife, and I may also just have to wear a coat in the bedroom. So I'm hoping, and she said that she's open to compromise, which is a good sign. There's a part of her that's saying that. And I want to see what that looks like in action too, right? We talk a good game sometimes because, right, it's like the idea of what we feel is compromise, what really is compromise really in that moment, right? And also, it seems that Brennan has a part of him that is very accommodating, right? Because he just said, yeah, I'll wear a coat in the bedroom as a joke, right? As a joke. And I feel like there's always a kernel of truth in a joke. And so I hear him saying that I'll adjust, right? I'll adjust. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful gift he's giving her. And at the same time, I'm wondering how that's going to land and bode well, over time. Our part of us that's accommodating, it will do that at the beginning of a relationship. And then after so long, it's like, okay, we need to talk, right? Because it gets old. It gets really old. And that part, like, it's kind of tired of having to always, like, okay, this is what you like. Okay, this is what you like. And that's how, like, resentment and frustration and all that stuff kind of gets built up in a relationship. So, hoping that Brennan will be able to use his voice. But it sounds like he may have a hard time in this area as Emily is learning when meeting his family about Brennan. And they're asking about her, right? Like, okay, you've never been in a relationship. How do you feel about this? And what kind of wife do you feel like you would be? And she said that she feels like she could be a good wife because her mother was a good wife, and she wants to have this like nurturing part of herself, and also at the same time be a career woman because she's like really passionate about her career, and she doesn't know whether she wants to be a stay-at-home mom. Like she's still figuring it out, right? So I'm hearing that maybe potentially she doesn't know what type of wife she's going to be, because there's a lot of moving parts. Like she's like, I see what kind of wife my mom was, and that looks nice, but I also want to have a career, but maybe potentially I want to be a stay-at-home mom, right? So there's a lot of different things she's considering as Brennan is meeting Emily's friends and family. I think the first question they asked was like, hey, is her energy a bit too much for you? And he was like, no, I have low energy, and so, there'd be a balance. Again, I right there, I feel like definitely opposites can attract in that space. And at the same time, there are times where he potentially is going to want her to kind of match his energy in a way of like, hey, I just want to chill. And or at least her giving him space to do that, right? I just want to be mellow right now, just want to chill, I want to chillax. And she has this part of her that's like very energetic and wants to do, right, and wants to be active. And so they're going to have to find some balance in that in order to make it work. They also ask him about his concerns around the fact that she's never been in a relationship. And he says, well, it's not an issue, but it is a concern, and we will have to, work on communication, which we're already starting to do, and it's going to be tough, right? So he's naming a lot right now. Like, it's a part of him that wants to be reassuring to them, and also there's a part of him that has a concern and knows that it's going to be a challenge because she hasn't been in a relationship. So he's speaking for both parts of himself, like, at the same time. Emily's mother also talked to Brennan about how she works late hours and she works a lot and how he feels about that. And he said, well, that's something that's okay with him. And at the same time, they're going to have to like conversations about it because he does want her, he does want to be able to have quality time with her. And if that becomes an issue, then that's something they're really going to have to talk about. So Emily's with his family and she asks, okay, how does he handle conflict? And they said, well, he does have a bit of a temper, and he doesn't like not getting what he wants. Okay. So, this is where we're seeing the two opposites, or what we call like a polarization, right? So, he has a part of him that's very accommodating, and he has a part of him that doesn't like to not get what he wants. Okay? How is that going to bode well in their relationship, right? And so that's what potentially is adding to this temper, right? Because there may be a part of him that's wanting you to do what he's doing. I'm accommodating for you. I want you to accommodate for me, instead of speaking for what he wants and needs in a relationship. And so when that doesn't happen, then the temper comes, right? We shall see, right? But I'm getting a sense that potentially that's what's happening internally for Brennan, and there may be some reasons around that, right? About like his upbringing and how maybe speaking for his needs. It's really a part of our culture that men aren't supposed to speak for like emotional needs and things of that nature. Like, that's not something that they're allowed to do. They're allowed to work and provide, and there's a lot of pressure about how they show up in a relationship, and they don't have a lot of permissions in our society in regards to their emotional needs and speaking for them and showing their emotions. Now we are seeing in this season where there are some men that are more in tune with their emotions and speaking for them, and we see that potentially Brennan has some of that. And at the same time, there are some areas of growth for him. So we'll see as this relationship, right, continues to bode well and move through. Brennan's with her family and saying that, divorce is not an option. And that's a phrase that people say a lot. And at the same time, it is. Not saying that we're campaigning for divorce. That's not it. But it is an option. And so I feel like sometimes saying divorce is not an option is a great way to power through, right, a relationship and work through a relationship, like having that mindset. And this part of him that definitely believes that because he wants a marriage that will last forever, like his parents' relationship. And at the same time, too, if things aren't working, if things are, you've put in the hard work, both of you are working, but they're still, right, there's some things that just are deal breakers, then we have to call a spade, especially in this situation where it's a stranger and you didn't pick your spouse, someone picked them for you. That's a huge thing, right? So the couple, they're packing, they're getting ready for their honeymoon. They're talking about which seat they prefer on the airplane. Really talk about too with the other couples what they're looking forward to doing while they're in Mexico. And it looks like Brennan is up for a big ride and of fun with Emily on the honeymoon. So we shall see. Next we have Lauren and Orion, and they're still right connecting. There's some banter that's happening between them two, and Lauren gets in the bed and she's like, I'm so tired, and I didn't wrap up my hair, which is a very big thing for us. Speaking of us, like black women, and he said, well, he's like, do I need to wrap my hair too? And she said, well, I have two bonnets, and so they both put on bonnets, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Um, and and it's very cute, and they have a little kiss goodnight. They decide to not move forward in the physical department as of yet, and at the same time, Lauren stated that it's not off the table, right? It's not off the table. So again, Lauren's not speaking to her attraction completely to Orion, and at the same time, I still see that she's still moving to connect to him, right? She's still moving to connect to him. And hey, maybe she's watched Married at First Sight for many seasons and sees how talking about someone's appearance to them at the very beginning or on the honeymoon really kind of backfires on the whole connecting piece. And so maybe that's where she is. And hey, I'm grateful that she's using that wisdom. But you can tell like there's something there because she's not speaking to it, and she's a very, very vocal person, as we see continuously in this episode. So they're waking up together, and Lauren's like, hey, give me some tips for talking to your mom. And she says, like, you are her mom, you're your mom's son, like her heart. And he's like, yeah. And so he's saying, well, hey, they are really big on respect, and they just want to know if you're going to respect our culture, our point of view. And that's a huge thing, and I feel like that's not going to be an issue for Lauren. Like, she was fully invested and interested in getting to know about their culture. And so I don't see that Lauren's going to have an issue with connecting with his mother and his sister. But you do see that he is really talking, right? There's a part of him that has this high esteem for his mom, right? And this part of him that is also feeling like repressed almost by this matriarch, right, in their culture. So these two are here, right? They're here, and it's going to show up in his relationship with Lauren too, right? There's part of him that's going to feel very hold her in very high regard, and this part of him that maybe with her being a strong black woman, as her family described her, that also may be something that he may have a hard time sitting with or being with, right? They discuss their morning routine, right, as they're getting also prepared for brunch with their family and friends. And he said he likes it quiet. And also Lauren shares that she gets in a mood where sometimes she likes to be by herself because her feelings, speaking for her feelings, becomes a little difficult. And if they engage in those moments, that it could cause an argument. She's like, and I don't want to argue. And so Orion said, hey, then making that request that when you're in that space, just let me know. So they said that's their first agreement or pact as a married couple. Lauren is meeting Orion's mother and sister, and so they asked the questions like, hey, what are your intentions with Orion? And she said that she just wants to be the person, right, the wife that he deserves, giving him the love and that he deserves. And his sister really respected that response, saying because Orion is really big on reciprocal relationships, like having a give and take in a relationship. As Orion is meeting with her family, we learned that Orion's father left when he was younger, so it doesn't seem like he has a relationship with his dad, and he was raised by his mother and really holds her in high regard. And there was a concern about like how will you treat her? She's an independent black woman, and this is a big thing in our culture because of our unique story in the U.S., where there's a lot of cultural things that really attribute to the strength that unfortunately and fortunately that black women have to hold in order to keep them safe in a country that has been unsafe, right, historically for them. He speaks to when he was very young that he put himself in a space to protect his mother and his sister, and he definitely wants to continue that for his wife, and that he really wants to honor her, and especially because she is a minority, right? That or part of the global majority, whatever language you use, that's even something that he treasures even more and wants to treasure her even more because of that. Lauren shared with his mother and sister that she really wants to include their culture, and really wants Orion to feel accepted, like really feel accepted by her. And Orion's sister shares that's a huge thing for them because they are biracial, and they went from the reservations to living in Denver, and how that was a huge issue for Orion and school and why his peers being accepted because he's different, right? Because there's a different culture, people don't know it, don't understand it, and unfortunately, when it comes to indigenous people, there's not a lot of representation for people to have a context, and so people oftentimes judge or reject things that are different instead of leaning in to learn and accept. And so it is a beautiful gift that Lauren is leaning in and accepting Orion and his differences, and that would be a beautiful gift for the little boy, right, in him that was rejected because of his differences. Orion's mom asked about their age difference and if that would be a issue, right, if that would be an issue for her. She said, before it was, and she's seeing that with Orion's maturity level that it's starting to diminish. She said even also with him living at home, right? She has some concern, right? And at the same time, she's seeing that he's using this time to grow. Now on her end, right, her family asks, hey, Lauren wants someone who's financially stable. Are you? And he said there's always checks coming in, right? So we're hearing like there's some vague language that's happening, right? I have money coming in. There's always things moving and grooving, and at the same time, right, I'm working towards some career goals, right? And so, hoping that Lauren is able to accept that. Hoping also for Orion that he's being responsible and working to that goal. Like hoping that both of these things are happening for this not to be a sore space in their relationship. Now, they're talking about how the meetings went. They felt like it went okay. They felt like it went great. They found out where they're going to their honeymoon in Mexico, and they're meeting the couples, and there is an oops ouch that happens, right? So Cameron makes a slip where he says like, okay, when we're in Mexico, we have to be careful to stay on the reservation, and then looks at Orion and says, sorry, he means to say resort. And Orion says, it's okay. And then he uses the word ignorance. And there's a little heat there. So there's like a part of him that's saying it as a joke. And also there's a part of him that is a bit heated about it. And Lauren kind of really comes to his rescue and said, whoa, like, and she's also doing it in a joking way, like, okay, you're going to say reservation and then point to my husband. And oftentimes, unfortunately or fortunately, the way that people of color have had to navigate situations like this, because I really feel we'll speak to it, right? Even though Cameron says, or maybe it was intentional, that when an oops ouch happens, right, that there can be a conversation about it. Right now, they're laughing it off. However, I'm feeling and I'm getting the sense that there's something underneath there, as we see kind of in the footage next week. I really feel like that footage is around this oops ouch moment that happened in the bus on the way to the resort or to the airport wherever they were headed. And so I'm hoping that they can have a more serious conversation around the oops ouch, so they can be really genuine repair, or just a genuine conversation, and then whatever happens so that Cameron can have a learning moment, and also that Orion can speak for what was happening for him, and also Lauren. Last, we have Claire and Cameron. Whew, this couple was a bit rocky this episode. And so Cameron's saying he's reading Claire, and it doesn't seem like she's really coming off as wanting like intimacy or physical intimacy. And so he's kind of keeping his distance, right? And he's using nonverbal communication to read where Claire is, okay? Which can be a way, right, that you see it. Maybe if a person has their arms folded, they're even like kind of keeping a distance from the other person. You see that that does contribute to what a person's feeling, absolutely. And at the same time, having an upfront conversation about it would be really helpful, especially when you're just getting to know each other. It's hard to read someone's nonverbals if you just met them today. And so you don't know her. Maybe she's always cold. We don't know. And so she has her hands and her arms folded. It would be wonderful for them to have a conversation around this. Now, Claire did state that there was an off-camera conversation at the after party where he said that the experts, like, I wanted someone who's a bit more slender and tall. And in my mind, I'm like, Claire's not slender? I don't know. I don't know what his standards are, right, in regards to that. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, here we go. We're starting off on an interesting foot yet again. I do see though where Claire, she has a part of her that is laughing through this, right? She's using humor to get through this. She also has a part of her, like it's almost like her therapist part, that's trying to communicate where she is. And it doesn't seem like Cameron is a big communicator. And so her over communication, it seems like her part of her is like, hey, but no, like seriously, where are you? It's like, I'm fine, because he's not used to speaking for where he is or his feelings, as we find out and learn more about him throughout the episode. And so Claire's speaking to, well, we're not there, right? We're not there in this moment. So she's wondering, hey, are we going to have cuddles? They don't have cuddles. They sleep on like the opposite ends of the bed. And you see how Claire's like looking at him, and there's a little disappointment and sadness there I'm seeing in her eyes. And I'm like, okay. And this isn't being spoken for. All of this is not being addressed. Cameron's disappointed that there's no physical touch happening. And at the same time, he's not communicating anything, because that's not what he's used to, right? He has a part of him that's not used to doing that. And so they wake up, and she says it's a bit awkward waking up next to him, because she's like, oh, she had to remind herself that he was there. She's been sleeping by herself most of her life. And Cameron says, well, I just pretended you weren't there. Ouch. It seems like this awkward humor, and I don't know if this is a part of his culture. I don't know if this is part of his culture or if this is part of Cameron. I don't know much about New Zealand. I am ignorant to New Zealand and the culture of like the people and the temperament and the humor. Like, I don't know anything about that, right? And so speaking to that, right? So I don't know if this is a part of how Cameron is showing up. And at the same time, I do wonder how it was for him to come to America by himself, and with all those differences that we were even speaking to for Orion. Like, Cameron had to navigate that too. Now, he did navigate that in a body though that could assimilate to the majority. Not to say that wasn't a challenge, but that is his also lived experience too. He's not naming that or talking about that, but that is his lived experience. It seems that Cameron is not, though, maybe used to or understanding how his humor lands for other people. And it seems like he will also learn, though, through this journey, how his humor lands on other people, as he's having some ouchies even with his wife through the first few days that they are meeting with each other. So Cameron is sharing his similarities with his grandmother, that she was this really big, strong figure in their family, and there was a lot of connection and similarities between them two. They loved each other so much, but never said it. And Claire was like, oh, wow, like that's completely different from my family. Like we say it all the time. And she even shared at the after party that a part of her was like even sad that like, oh man, Cameron's never heard this. Has never really had that. Like, I love you. Like hearing that and having that reassurance that that is happening, right? There's a part of him that even feels like, hey, we don't need it because I know that she loved me. And that may be a way that he's had to cope with not having that reassurance, especially as a young person. As an older person, right, he has the intellect of knowing like, yes, of course my grandmother loved me. And I'm wondering too if there was a time when he was younger and maybe didn't feel that, just felt like her strong kind of dominant personality, but not feeling the affection and love there. So he speaks to how his communication with love is more of touch, and Cameron is not really understanding where Claire is. This is where the communication is like it's not, they're not hearing each other, or Cameron's not hearing Claire. Claire's saying, hey, I actually do want physical connection. That's something I really want. I also want and need verbal communication. I need that. And he's hearing, I don't want physical intimacy. That's what he's hearing, because she's saying, I don't want physical intimacy without the verbal communication of where you are in your feelings and your affection. I need both. I need both. Okay. And so Cameron's coming, what he's hearing is, oh, you don't want physical intimacy. And that's not what she's saying or communicating. And so they're meeting each other's families as the brunch happens, right? And Cameron's sitting with her family, and they're like, hey, are you attracted to her? Tell me everything. Like, her sister is panicking. There's a part of her that's like, I just need to know everything. I need to know everything about him. And they're like, he seems like a good guy. And at the same time, I just want to know more. Like, I just want to know more. And he says that he's definitely attracted to her. And at the same time, it's hard to answer conversations about where he sees the relationship going long term, right? He doesn't know, which is fair. They just met yesterday. He talked about his relationship history, saying that he would do 1 year and then 1 year off, and then 1 year and 1 year off. And then a part of me is like, this is interesting. I'm wondering, seeing how Cameron shows up, right? I'm wondering if this is a pattern for him, like an intentional pattern for him that he may not even be realizing it's happening, to even prevent, ooh, after 1 year where the communication just like comes to a screeching halt, then okay, then I take a moment off, and then okay, I try it again, but then for some reason, right, it just doesn't go well because I struggle with communication, or I struggle to connect in a way that is outside of physical intimacy. This is going to be a challenge. And so even his sister said, well, how will that happen for Claire? And yeah, I'm a bit concerned about this couple. I have to be 100% honest, because it seems like they're like very opposite in when it comes to affection and how it's communicated and their expectations around it. And so Cameron even stated like, this is going to be a potential issue because I may be really thinking about Claire all day. Like, oh, I love her so much. I'm excited to see her. And then but he moves in to connect physically instead. And so she's with his friends, and she's like, okay, I see that he's a logical thinker. He's got emotional intelligence. Okay, I hear you, but is he a romantic? And they're like, and there's like crickets. And like, well, I don't know really. I don't know. And it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like that fuzzy animal, maybe from his view, was really endearing, right? But Claire was hoping for a more of a romantic gesture, and she's seeing that that's also an area of growth for Cameron in their relationship. And he's also creating a lot of distance between them two. There's a lot of distance, even as she was speaking to like the fact that she had to help herself with her luggage. He's like, he's moving ahead of her in the airport. Like, this is the time they're supposed to be joining together. It's the time supposed to be really sharing, and he's supposed to be showing up for her. She's saying, hey, you didn't pick up, like, you didn't help me with my bags. And he's like, well, you didn't help me with mine. And I'm like, oh no, Cameron. Okay. There's a part of me that's hoping he's joking. And at the same time, he says that he's heard that it's not, it's not okay to assume that a woman can't do something. Absolutely. We got that, right? And at the same time, you could ask, right, and offer it. Like, would you like me to help you with your bag? She could say, no, I got it. Or she could say, of course, yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You can offer it. But I'm really concerned around Cameron and this oops, ouch moment too that happens with Orion and Lauren. He jokes it off and he does a quick sorry. And the sorry is, in that moment, oftentimes when the quick sorry happens, it's like, ooh, don't be mad. Like, that's what that, it's the defense, right? A part of him is like, don't be mad at me. I said something, I said something wrong. And then again, not addressing it because, right, the communication skills is something that is definitely going to be a growing space for Cameron. And he laughs it off. And both of them do, right? So he's matching them. Oh yeah, or was it intentional? And not realizing how that lands even more on Orion and Lauren. So you let me know. You let me know about where you feel these couples are in the first few days of their marriage. I do have big concerns around Cameron and Claire, starting off with these big communication barriers that's happening in their relationship. But you let me know what you think as we continue to see what plays out on the honeymoon next episode. If you are still with us, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, be cool, be calm, be centered. Peace.